Hello, hello. For me, it's the beginning of another day. Last night, I almost created a video at 11:11. But I was pretty tired, and I thought, no, I'm going to go to bed and try to get a good night's sleep. Of course, I woke up 3:30ish. And Spirit had redirected me because when I woke up, I had this strange dream that I remembered. I mean, I have dreams probably all the time, but I don't remember them most of the time. But in this dream, a part of me, because I've learned that in dreams, everything is you, even in this waking dream, but we don't realize that, most of us. But in a dream, everything is part of you. So a part of me was driving a truck. Another part of me was the passenger in the truck. And when we got almost home, the driver of the truck decided to take the high road. And I knew that the low road was the one where we lived. And so I was protesting. And I'm saying to the driver, "You're going the wrong way. You're going the wrong way." And finally the driver pulled over on this little ledge-like, and we looked down below. We were right above where we actually lived, and he could see the house. And he says, "Oh, you were right. I should have taken the low road." And we went back and we circled around and pulled into the driveway, and that's when I woke up. We got back to where we're actually living. The title for today's talk has been changed from what I thought it was going to be at 11:11 last night, or actually in preparation for doing an 11:11 video. It's going to be called Banks, Courts, Governments, and Corporations. And that will probably draw some people's attention. In any case, at the New Way, we've been involved in this Keys to the Kingdoms course that we've retitled The Life You Want to Live. And in the section that we've been on this past week, they have 7 truths. Truth number 2 is this: abundance is a here and now reality. And even though it wasn't in the questions was which one do you believe in most of these 7 truths, I put down which one do you believe in least. And I selected truth number 2 because I don't believe, for most human beings on the planet, that abundance is a here and now reality. In fact, in the matrix in which we actually live, seen from the higher perspective, abundance is impossible for most people. Absolutely impossible. Because sitting at the top of the pyramid are banks, courts, governments, and corporations that not only control the lives of most human beings, they enslave most human beings into a system where most human beings are clueless as to who they are. And it's impossible, it's absolutely impossible to have abundance through ignorance. The first prerequisite to abundance is knowing who you are. And I'm talking about knowing where you live. Both of those perspectives, the high road and the low road in my dream, both of them are me. I already said that, of course. One of them is the me that's saying, okay, look down at where you're living. See from the higher perspective. See it from the higher perspective. And the other part of me says, but I know that's where I actually live. That's where my reality is derived from. That's where the experience of my life comes from. It comes from where I actually live. And it's important to get both perspectives. which is what I try to do with these Ninth Wave videos. I try to give you both perspectives. That's why I'm the paradox man. I look at it from this angle and from that angle, and I will address yesterday's loaded statement that said God doesn't care about morality, because that was a loaded statement on purpose, and I will get to that. That's what I was going to do last night at 11:11, and it's still in my head to do that. But today, it's important that we focus on banks, courts, governments, and corporations, because those are the institutions of the matrix from which we derive our actual human experience. Those of you who have been following the videos for some time know that I was involved in a lawsuit for 5 years, and I won the lawsuit when they withdrew from the court date that they set. They took it off, and took the case off the docket as far as being heard in the court. And then after the property that was the whole lawsuit was about was sold for way less money than it originally was put on the market for, and that offers were made for back in 2005. I mean, I had two offers, $870,000 and $850,000 back in 2005, and it finally ended up being sold for $275,000. So the bank didn't like that, so now they've issued false documents, as I said, approved by some court entity up in Ohio, allowing the court to say that the copy of the original is a certified. They didn't use the term certified copy, and I don't remember the exact terminology that they used, but you can't certify a copy of a monetary device, of a negotiable instrument, and it's never anything but counterfeit. It cannot be anything but counterfeit. In any case, that the Ohio affidavit indicated that that it was an actual verifiable copy, and they admitted in the affidavit that the original was lost. Of course, they don't admit that it was actually sold, and once it was sold, the note was discharged, so there was no more note. Once you sell a note, it is discharged. That's the law. It's the law as it exists. But do the courts and the banks and the governments and the corporations go by laws? No, they don't. And they've been able to get away with it because of the ignorance of the people. Shifting back to when the lawsuit was in mediation, the mediator was a wonderful man, a lawyer. Yes, he was a lawyer, and I felt he would give a fair shake in trying to reach a mediated settlement in the lawsuit. And I was excluded from the mediation. Isn't that nice? It concerns me, and I was not even allowed to be in there to witness what was going on. I know at one point the mediator came out to me and said, here's what's on the table. If you're willing to put a $50,000 mortgage on the house that you live in, which of course there was no mortgage, there never was a mortgage on the house that I live in, from the very day that I took ownership of the house, there was no mortgage. But if I was willing to put a $50,000 mortgage on the house, there would be a settlement reached and the lawsuit would have been dismissed. And I know who put that requirement on there, which of course I did not accept. And it was the bank's lawyer. And it was interesting because when the other lawyers came out into the parking lot, I had been sitting in my car at that time, and I went to one of the lawyers and I said, was a settlement reached? And he grimaced and said, no, unfortunately not. And I don't remember if those were his exact words, but he definitely said no, there was no settlement reached. And I went back in. I needed to use the bathroom anyway, and I used the bathroom, and then I went up to where the mediation room was, and there were only two people, the mediator and the bank's lawyer were in the room. And as I walked up to the door, I heard this statement from the bank's lawyer: principles don't matter when you have kids to put through college. Interesting. This is the attorney for the bank. And I'm sure that's the same attorney that put the requirement that they wanted to put a $50,000 mortgage on my property. Now, if you understand how mortgages work in the world of bank fraud, which the world is supported by totally, that would have given them $50,000 times 10 at least, that they could turn that note for a new mortgage around and get more money out of me fraudulently. And it's all fraud. And I want everybody to be awake that it's all fraud. And I say the real matrix, the matrix is a fiction. Banks are fictions as they operate. Courts are fictions. Governments are fictions. Corporations are fictions. And they've even made each of us, you and I, straw men, fictions. A straw man is a legal fiction. That's the truth. That's the reality of the matrix in which we derive our human experience. And if we don't know that, and we remain ignorant of it, and we're not willing to stand in our power and in our truth, we let the banks and the courts and the governments and the corporations get away with robbing us blind of our natural inheritance as children of God. And it is about spiritual awakening. It is about knowing who you are spiritually, because you will not understand who you are as a human being unless and until you understand who you are spiritually. It is about awakening to the truth about yourself. You are an infinite and eternal being, and you have all the gifts of heaven at your disposal if you will only remember who you are and choose to stand in your power. Choose to stand up for what is right, even when the whole matrix system is built on fraud and deception and yields apparent power. It doesn't have real power, because all real power in government is derived from the people. But the banks have been committing fraud for as long as anybody can remember. And that's another subject that I'm not going to be able to get into today, because there's a positive side to all of that. Believe it or not, there is a positive side to it. And I will get into that at some future time. But all of these people, and by the way, and the courts support the bank's fraud, and the government support the court's fraud, and it's all just one big corporation operating the entire world. And you can call it the Matrix. That's a good word for it. It's all a big corporation based on fraud and deception and keeping people ignorant. That's it. But each of the human beings that are within these banks, courts, governments, and corporations, each of the human beings is a human being. There's a divine flame, a divine spark in every one of them. The attorney that said principles don't matter when you have kids to put through college, obviously she's being motivated by fear. And let me just say about that lawyer. After I did a video, right after the new papers were signed, I did a video. I don't remember what the title was at this time. I should have looked it up, but I didn't. She sent me an email, and she said she watched the video, and I was perilously close. I don't think she used the word slander in the email, but she did say she watched the video, and she was glad that I did not give her name or the name of the bank or the name of her law firm, because if I had, I would be in serious trouble. Threats, right? And she also made reference to some of the things that I had posted on my website bordered dangerously close to crossing some line, some imaginary line. And I'm not about, at this point anyway, to name any of those entities. Except to say this. Besides the fact that they did not get as much money out of the sale of the other property, the trust property, as they would have liked, I think part of the reason that they may be reopening the can of worms in the lawsuit and coming after me again, even after the final sovereign judgment was made in May last year, even after that, is because they would like to make an example of me somehow or another. That's a thought of mine. It may not be their motivation. I don't know. But the mere fact that the bank's attorney admitted to watching at least one of my videos, I don't know if any others were ever watched, maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but also admitted to knowing the content of my website. So they're keeping an eye on me, and I'm a very public person with nothing to hide. But the statement of the attorney shows how much in the matrix we all are when we think that putting our kids through college is more important. Now that's love, and she wants to give her kids what she feels is the best for her children. And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. However, when you say principles don't matter, that's the underlying factor of what's wrong with our entire system. Because principles are all that matters. Getting to the truth is all that matters. But the banks certainly don't want to get to the truth when they've operated fraudulently for years and years and years. And the courts, they realize that hey, this is what is enriching us. This is what's enriching each of us. And all the lawyers are officers of the court. And the court is a structure made to deceive and to rob people. It's not about justice. It's about theft. Theft of property. Theft of rights. Theft of everything that's important to make our lives abundant and free. They take oaths of office. Every one of them has to take an oath of office. But they don't adhere to their oaths, not even a little bit. It's all a con game. It's a fraud. And people need to be aware. This is the world where we live. If you look at it from the higher perspective of knowledge, of knowing what's really going on there, and it's plainly made available in this day and age to those that are willing to look. Plainly made available. If we see this, when we see this, then it is a call to action. It is a call to stand in truth, not against the people that are in the system, not against the attorneys, not against the banks, not against the judges, not against the governments and the corporations, but against the principles on which these institutions are founded. Because those are the institutions, the method of their method of operation is not based on truth or love or any of the ideals that each of us as human beings hold in our heart. So everyone needs to become educated, which means to lead out of. That's what the Latin word is, educo, educere. It means to lead out of, to set free from, to release from bondage. That's what education is about. But our education system even has been fraudulent all along. It teaches the lie. It doesn't teach the truth. And it's the truth, as Jesus said, that shall set us free. So I hope my reflections today give you something to think about. Don't just swallow what I say because I say it. Investigate. And the truth is there for those who seek it. Seek and you shall find. Ask and it shall be given unto you. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you. Everyone that seeks finds. Everyone that asks receives. But the thing is, we haven't asked the right questions and we haven't sought in the right places. And therefore the door has remained closed for most of humanity. That door is ready to open in this ninth wave. That's what this ninth wave is all about. So I'm going to leave you with that. I went almost 5 minutes over. Sorry about that. But anyway, God bless you. Have a beautiful day. And I'll be back tomorrow, perhaps with a message that continues from yesterday's message that said God doesn't care about morality. In any case, my blessings to you, my friend. Bye-bye.